One player that we haven't brought up, well, a couple of them, Kayla and Aaron. Obviously, they were the two as the, I guess you call it a quadruple when the polycule took place. Aaron went with Kayla, Nick went with April. Aaron has his own podcast, his own stream show that he does in the morning and in the evening, and he's very vocal about what happened, what's going on, the whole situation. Do you believe Aaron and everything that he's saying, or do you think he's somewhat of a jilted lover that was, expelled from the group? What's your opinion on him, if I may ask?
Well, from my understanding, Aaron was originally an actual host of like a show, and then he went ape shit over some woman who like beat him on like a Facebook competition, so he got fired. And now he does the Still Till Morning Show, which is like an online continuation of his local radio stuff. So he has financial incentive to keep the story kind of within his realm, and he also kind of has like a reputational motivation to, since none of the other parties can speak, and he's the only one that managed to spare or be spared from the government as a result of the raid because they had already broken up. He's basically the only one at liberty to tell his story. So he can go on these big tirades about how Kayla said that he was the best sex she ever had and she loved him. And all Rekieta can't reply to any of that. So I feel like a lot of it is kind of like selfish in a way. And I feel like the other half of it is that he does hate Rekieta, and he is deliberately trying to say inflammatory things that will get under his skin that he is completely incapable of responding to.
How do you feel about Kayla in this situation, having everything exposed? And she wasn't very public, but she did come out in a few of the videos and things like that, and then possibly revenge being released and such. What do you see in that realm?
I don't feel bad for her at all, and I don't justify that by saying, oh, she tried to hawk like THC shit on his channel a couple times. I justify that because ultimately she's the mama bear, and if the kids are being neglected, if there's cocaine in the house, if the children are being exposed to cocaine, even if it's like some magical process by which cocaine metabolites are flying around the house, air bombing on children's hair. Even in that situation, she ultimately should be in the position where she chooses kids over her husband. That's basically the woman's job, and she didn't. So she's rightfully right next to him in regards to the charges.
I guess the last player in the case are these 5 children that are just caught in the middle. You know what I'm saying? Like they didn't choose this. They were just kind of living their life, and all of a sudden, bam, they're living with their grandparents. They're not dumb. Kids are a lot smarter than we think they are, especially the 16-year-old. Can you imagine that? What do you say to her, or not even saying to her, what do you think about their situation and them possibly reading updates on the Kiwi Farms about their family and life?
Well, it's not just the forum. It's local news. It's not even local news. It's national news.
You're right.
So it's I'm sure it's traumatizing because you think about their situation and they lived either their entire lives or, I mean, their entire lives they were in a comfy situation where they had a normal 2-parent home on a large number of acres. They had everything they could ever want provided for them. They had this very bespoke educational system, which is probably, in regards to its quality, one of the highest in the entire country. You know what I mean? So to go from that to living the nightmare of like every inner city junkie child is probably really traumatic. It probably undermines their trust in people quite a bit. If you can't trust your own parents not to choose coke over you, how do you trust anybody moving forward, right?
I'm not trying to be your family situation or anything like that, but you dealt with some tough times yourself. Do you see these kids kind of going through tough times as well? Did your heart kind of reach out to them? I hate to bring the kids and stuff up, but it's just I got to do the full pie. Do you feel any similarities to how they're feeling, or
no? I grew up with my mother for most of my life, but she always worked. She never had any arrests until I was an adult. She never brought men to the home. I never saw any of her boyfriends. I was basically in the custody of my grandparents, and they never had any issues. They're just nice old boomers, right? So, no, I honestly I can't even imagine what they're going through. I never had any issues like that growing up.
So we're just talking about the legal case. Now, do you think there's going to be a civil case to this after the legal case is over? This is where I see Aaron going down. And I don't want that to happen, but I think Aaron has shut his mouth off so much, and Nick has just been waiting and waiting and waiting, taking until finally he can put Aaron there on the stand and go after him. Do you think that's going to happen?
Are you asking if I think Rekieta will sue Aaron Imholt for defamation or some other claim?
Correct. Along those lines, anything in the civil realm.
Ordinarily, I would say no. I think it's kind of hard to, because I'm in 3 cases right now. It's really kind of hard to understate how annoying civil cases are. It's not something you should ever really put yourself in unless you're genuinely like injured, or unless you're a belligerent retard who has nothing to lose and you can do this for free. Those are the only 2 situations where I would advise that. However, Rekieta is pretty spiteful, and I think with lest we forget, there is the Montegraph case, which he's losing. And there's kind of an interesting caveat with that too, where I like to use this German chess word. It's called a Zugzwang, and it means a compulsion to move. And in his civil suit, you don't have a Fifth Amendment right. I think a lot of people don't know this, but you have no rights in a civil case. You have no right to a speedy trial. You have no right to an attorney. You have no right to remain silent. You have no rights in civil cases. It's all criminal, where these famous human protections enter into play. So if Montegraph's lawyer wants to be a dickhead or wants to force him to settle out of court, he has a very fun way to do that. He can depose Rekieta and ask him, for instance, in regards to his character. You say that you're a emeritus attorney who has a large YouTube channel, but yet you're currently in trial for cocaine possession and endangering your children. How do you respond to that? And in civil court, if you choose not to respond to something or refuse to provide evidence or have deleted evidence after being notified you'll be sued, the jury is instructed to interpret that in the least favorable way possible. So if he says, I can't respond to that, the jury is then instructed to assume I am a cracked out piece of shit and I have I am continuously under cocaine. I'm the worst person ever. I do in my children for the purposes of that civil trial. So Montegraph is really in a great position to completely ruin him on dispositions. And if he gets that hard and that viciously, it might like plant this seed of malice and vindictiveness that will erupt later to go after Aaron after he loses that. I was a little bit disappointed that you didn't ask any more questions specifically about the rumors regarding the case that would benefit the public interest claim for either the health and human services or the sheriff's. And that's kind of what I wrote about in the document in regards to not just the Fourth and Sixth Amendment violations that Rekieta and his surrogates are alleging, but Barnes in particular specifically made specific claims about Officer Pomplin, who was present for the search warrant. I think he was also the one who wrote the statement of probable cause to get the warrant to begin with. And Barnes, when discussing this with Viva Fry, said explicitly that this officer had like a motivation out to get him. And Fry responded saying that that Rekieta, I think his exact words was Rekieta is the most outspoken critic of a corrupt small government. So they're really trying to lay this foundation for doubt that Rekieta is not saying directly that the county is openly conspiring against him because he's just such a wholesome family man, or he was, and or they're now religious prudes who are upset that he's living a non-monogamous lifestyle with substances that they don't approve of, and so they've conspired to get rid of him and ruin him basically.
Do you believe that to be the case?
No.
That's just basically what he feels. That's kind of his defense of what he's trying to see and try to build upon.
It's very weird because it may be a part of his criminal defense, but it more or less feels like his defense for public criticism. He's trying to save his career and combat negative perception of his public reputation, but in a very roundabout way. There's another quote in that document I sent you where Rekieta says, in response to me, he says, "I didn't say that. I was very careful to not specifically say that thing. And then he kind of like interrupts that thought and says, I didn't say that at all. And it kind of proves to me that he's trying to do everything but make the direct allegation, because the direct allegation would then become a point of contention in his criminal and custody matters. But he is trying to plant the thought as vigorously as possible. There's also that conversation with Chrissy Meyer. It was a pretty significant personality.
Oh,
She's like 300,000.
Her and Keanu.
Yeah. So, and he's speaking with her, and he says two things that are just remarkable. He says, you don't know, you may be surprised what's in your house, alleging that somebody planted it, maybe Aaron. And then he says, you don't know what police might bring into your house either. And then Chrissy asked the natural follow-up, are you saying that's what happened? And he says, I didn't say that. But he doesn't say now. I realized in reviewing the logs for all this shit where he tries to create plausible deniability while laying this foundation, he'll say, I didn't say that, or I went out of my way not to say that. But he never says that's not what happened.